Welcome to Art Crush with artists Fee Marks and Paula Telizyn, where we talk about running an art business, being an artist, being a woman artist, and the challenges we face, and more. Hello, Fee.
Hi, Paula.
So today we want to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my own heart. Should I quit? In past episodes of Art Crush, we have talked about your metaphor about the bus. And the
Yeah.
bus is such a perfect explanation for what happens with a lot of artists. And I don't even remember how it came up in conversation because we've been talking about the bus for a few years now.
No, nor do I. But I think it was probably that we were talking about your career as a journey, and then it was like, yeah, but people get off at different stops, and then that's how it came about. I would surmise.
I think so. I think so. And it could also have been like me talking about some of the artists that I had been mentoring and whatever just stopped short of making a big career for themselves. So the idea that
And self-sabotage that goes with
Mhm.
that.
So the idea that Fee had come up with was that the bus is the desire to be an artist. People desire to be an artist, a professional artist, a lot, much like they desire to write a book and whatever. The idea of being a professional artist is very attractive. Imagine being able to sit in your studio and paint all day, which the reality is not true.
Exactly.
30 to 40% painting or creating, and the rest of it is marketing, bookkeeping, connections, collaborations, blah, blah, blah. It's not this happy-go-lucky sitting in your bower and inhaling paint fumes. But people have this desire. So they get on the bus, and some people look around and go, shit, this is hard, and they get right back off again, right? Fair, right? Some people travel a few stops. They show their art in some local cafes. They sell a few pieces online, go, this is good enough for me. They get off the bus. And some people go a little bit farther. They start running workshops. Maybe they're bringing in enough to have an okay income coming in. Maybe they're doing a few things here and there, and then they get off the bus. And getting off the bus means that they're either quitting or they stop at that point and maintain where they're at. And then there are other people who stay on the bus right to the very end. Maybe they drop dead with a paintbrush in hand, face in their canvas, because they have done everything and lived their incredible life and stayed to the very, very end. In amongst the getting off the bus, whether it's maintaining that level, so you're still an artist, but you're not ambitious or not allowing yourself to be ambitious, there is the quitting. And
I was going to say there is the bus coming in the other direction.
yes. Or going elsewhere.
I think there's a difference in the way that you can get off at a stop and go, this is as far as I go. This is as far as I go. I'm happy doing local art shows, art fairs, and I'll do the same art shows, the same art fairs every year, and I'm happy with that. If I'm selling a few pieces, that's great. That's me. So that's more like I'm done pushing on. But then there is, do you know what? The whole thing, I'm not enjoying it. It's really, really making me feel quite ill. I'm getting the bus back. Getting the return.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Have you bought a return ticket or a one way?
exactly. And that's the point where you start questioning, this is really hard. Do I have it in me? Do I really want this? Should I quit? And I think we had said before we started recording that I don't think Fee has ever quit being an artist. I don't think she has.
Well, I'm not a quitter, and I don't know whether it's thanks to my parents who wouldn't let me quit anything. I remember begging to leave brownies. They wouldn't let me. I wanted to quit brownies so much. But I think it is interesting, and I should, certainly have quit my marriage sooner than I did. But yeah, again, we've talked about this a lot about how it's about your mindset. So we're back on our favorite topic of mindset. And instead of quitting, and to be fair, Paula, you have taught me this, let's try a different approach. Let's I want to do this and I still want to do this, but the way I'm doing it isn't working. So I need to think of a different way, a different approach so I get to my end goal. And I think that's the difference. Like actually standing up and going, yeah, well, I've did it this way. I thought it was going to work. It did work and it can work for a bit because Paula and I are always talking about this. You could do something, it starts working. You go, wow, that's it. I've made it. This is working so well for me. And then it stops working. And you're like, but I'm not doing anything differently. But that's how business works. You have to keep going, okay, right, what's next? What can I do to shift this? What can I do? And instead of thinking about going, well, I'm never going to paint again, you go, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to make myself fall in love with painting again. You know, people who fall in love say, I just can't paint at the moment. You can just embrace that. It's at the moment. That is the point. This is not, it's you're just not feeling it at the moment and saying, oh, that's it. I'm never going to pick up a paintbrush again.
Which is hilarious because I have quit many times.
Yes. Paul and I are very different on this topic. So it's quite you are getting both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. So the first time I quit doing my art, I quit because I had the accident. So trying to figure out
That's slightly different.
that's slightly different, but
Physically, you couldn't hold a paintbrush.
exactly,
That's
exactly. It
different.
was it was a few years of, yeah, it disconnected me from my art too in a big way as well, because I think when you're in motion, the momentum keeps you going. And so even if you're, like, going, "Do I want this?" or whatever, you still have commissions to do or shows to be ready for or whatever, and so that momentum sort of keeps you going past the little hiccups of going, "Do I really want this?" But because I screeched to a stop, when I went to return back to art, I didn't know what I wanted to say. I knew I didn't wanna do the same things I had done before. I thought maybe I didn't wanna do portraits at all, because I was doing a lot of pop culture and a lot of pet work, like pet portraits for people, which pet portraits aren't my thing, but when you're a portrait artist, sometimes the love that somebody has for their dogs or cats or whatever, they want to have that expressed, and so I did that for commissions. Um
Yeah, I include people's pets and then, past and present if I do a bespoke portrait.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, because they matter, right?
Mm.
But I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so I sort of circled around. I tried abstract, which I sort of flirted with in the past, but I don't enjoy it because I like to have a focal point. I like to have a story. I flirted a lot with surreal art, which I loved doing for a bit, and then I got bored. And not well, actually, that's not fair. I didn't get bored. My surreal art ended up being a huge commentary on our time, on the obliviousness of a lot of people to what was going on around them. So a lot of my art has that deeper meaning. And so it was less about being bored and more about I depressed the hell out of myself when I was creating it because I was expressing a lot of my frustrations and a lot of the uh weirdness around our times where you have people who are obsessed with buying something an influencer has, at the same time other people are going through incredibly challenging events. And so that disconnect was really bothering me. And so I thought, "You know what? I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna paint. I'm done." I told my email list I'm done. I deleted my art. My website didn't reflect my art. Like, it was gone, right? It took me, what, 3 weeks? And then
Have we said that Paula is very dramatic?
I am very dramatic.
I get to read I was the actress.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm the dramatic. But do you have to have a level of drama, and this is not drama as in I'm stirring shit, but just drama around making declarations and doing big things and whatever. I think you have to have a level of drama when you are creating something. There has to be some level of emotional projection and, emotion around your work.
I would use the word passion, you use the word drama, tomato, tomato.
Yeah, passion's a good one too. I think passion has a lot less negative connotations around
Yeah,
around it.
exactly. It's a much more positive thing. I think passion is what drives your artwork rather than drama. But
It does.
just saying.
It does, absolutely. So then after I did that, I was like, "Do I wanna go back to doing surreal art and depressing myself?" And I thought, "No, what did I really love?" My whole life. If I look back at my sketchbooks from when I was in high school or even late elementary school, it's all portraits, all portraits. And I spent a very long time refining my portrait technique. So I sat down after all of that and after I moved house and everything else that went on last year, and sat down and created several self-portraits because as an artist, that's my prerogative. I get to paint myself. Hurrah! And realize that, yes, it was the portraits. It was less about the pop culture, less about that, and more about how much I love painting people. And so, yeah, that was important. So I think the quitting for me was part of the process of maybe interrupting where I was.
And we can categorically say now, Paula, you weren't quitting. You were pushing a pause button on it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
there is
know,
that too.
hindsight isn't a wonderful thing. At the time you thought you were quitting.
And I was
Yeah.
prepared to quit.
Yes.
I really
At that point. So, for people, if you're feeling like that, that is fine. Go do something else. Go see the world. But once an artist, always an artist. You will come back to it. I am more or less 100% sure. I know I will never stop painting.
Yeah, and I never stopped being in the art community. Whether I was mentoring or supporting or running shows or whatever, I never stopped being in, around, and with artists. So you're right, once an artist, always an artist. So I think it's important maybe to also address artist block in this a little bit too. We've already talked about artist block at depth, but I think that the quitting, the desire to quit and go do something else, and artist block can go hand in hand because I think both of those come potentially from not listening to ourselves. And so in the last episode, we talked about ideas and what's powering your art and your why and everything else. But I think there's a degree of not listening. And some of my biggest artist block were around when my marriage was ending and my life was basically being dismantled. And I call that period of time running through my life with swords. And so I couldn't create. And so I had a period even back then of, I'm gonna do some abstract, I'm gonna try this. Every time I got a commission, I had to force myself to sit down and do it because I wasn't emotionally there. I wasn't listening to myself and my needs.
Paint a car once for a commission. There's something real, or
Yes.
a motorbike or something.
I did a car across 2 paintings, and that was my very first vehicle. I think my only one, or maybe I did another car. And yes, I did a motorbike as well.
I just remember you doing it, since I've known you and gone, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. There were portraits involved, but, yeah, because I'm expressive, it's really not my area to do the clean lines and stuff that those require. But yeah, I think there's a lot of us needing to listen to ourselves. And when people that I've worked with have decided I'm going this far and no farther on that bus analogy, I only want to show my work in coffee shops. I would try to have the conversations with them of, is that what you actually want or is that what you think you deserve? Because quitting and
Oh, are you scared? When we
are
talk
you
about being
scared?
scared a lot, are you scared to take the next step? So we did talk about taking the plunge. That first plunge is not the only plunge you have to do. You have to continually keep going, but trying different things and trying things that push you out your comfort zone. So I think that has got a lot to do with it. Once you become familiar with a certain way of selling your art, that's where you've got off. I mean, as we've said many times, it's like there's people who say, I don't do social media. And I say, you don't want to sell your art then. And they might say, "Well, I do. I sell them at art fairs." That's fine, but you've restricted your growth, which we talk about a lot. which again is fine if you're truly, you can look at yourself and go, that's what I'm happy with. Both Paula and I knew an artist, a very talented artist, and she could not take her artwork further than the local art area because she wanted to have other people pulling on her, demanding other things, demanding her attention. So it wasn't her main focus. And she acknowledged that and went, okay, I'll still paint, but this is what I'll do. And to this day, I don't know whether that is truly what she wanted or she compromised because she thought standing up to other people in her family or people at work and saying, no, this is what I'm doing, she chickened out. Don't know.
Yeah. It is really hard to say, but one of the things that we have to understand too is how our brains function. And I'm not going into the deep and nitty-gritty of it, but the basics of it is our brains are designed to use as few calories as possible to keep us alive. And so therefore we put people into boxes and we put ourselves into boxes. So when we look at, let's say we look at our siblings and we go, that's the smart one, that's the impulsive one. If we look at our friends, that's the one that likes to go shopping. We don't give them depth. And so we keep people in boxes. When they leave the boxes, we get a little upset with them because then our brains have to do a little bit of work. You've changed now that you've grown. Well, we do the same thing for ourselves. And if you think about how you speak to yourself and how you think about yourself, you may think, well, I'm just little old me. Who am I to have success at an art show? Who am I to get accolades in the media? Who am I to be selling for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars or pounds of my work? I'm just me. That's your brain trying to hold you into the box it's created for you. So there's a point too where you may feel like you're not worthy of it or it doesn't fit because it doesn't match the story that you've had of yourself. And that can also contribute to either staying where you're at, so maybe only selling in coffee shops because taking that plunge and creating that success requires you to redefine who you are, which is challenging. I've done it a lot for myself. I've helped people get through that as well, but it is challenging, or it actually contributes to your desire to quit because it's safer to continue living in that level of success or lack of success than it is to redefine yourself. And our brains are liars. I've told this to my kids, who are all now adults, weirdly enough, many times as they've faced obstacles, and then they're like, "Well, I don't want to do it. I'm scared." No, your brain's lying to you. It's absolutely lying to you. It's not there to do anything other than keep you alive so you can propagate and pass on your DNA. Huzzah! But we have to stop and say, "Why am I struggling with this? Why do I want to quit? Why do I want to stop? Why am I having creative block?" All of that is tied together in our self-view. So if Fee walks around and says to herself, "I'm a great painter and people love what I have and I'm worthy of the success," then she will create that for herself as she has done. But if she walks around and thinks to herself, "Well, I'm just Fee, I'm just this person in Derby, and I'm a little bit silly," or whatever. I would never call Fee silly, by the way. But I'm just
I
saying
hope not.
I would never
Nobody,
would. I would never would. But I
nobody
just
scored them personally.
in just this context of knocking yourself down, if you do that, then you'll look for ways that you aren't worthy of being in the rooms you wanna be in, and you'll either prevent yourself from getting in, or when you're in there, you'll affirm that you don't belong in some way. So, that's the important thing to be aware of, and then you'll think, "Well, that was such a bad experience, I'm quitting. I'm moving on. I'm not doing this anymore." So the self-examination, I think, is really important. Do you think you're worthy of success? Are you prepared to do the work to redefine yourself? Are you actually struggling, or is your brain struggling with how you are now as a different person, as an artist? Are you struggling with your self-worth? Do you think that, especially as a woman, are you allowed to be ambitious? Are you worried about people going, "Oh, she's too big for her boots. Look at her big old head." I lost friends when my art went international, when collectors and all that were buying my work. I lost friends who told me, "Paula, you've changed." Yeah, I fucking have changed. I'm selling my work internationally. Of course I've changed, right? If you
I'm actually walking into my power.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It, What I was going to say, which is interesting, slightly off topic, but not off topic, but not to do with the art world, was I was talking to my child about The Devil Wears Prada. And because The Devil Wears Prada 2 has just come out, which I haven't as yet to see, but I remember going to see The Devil Wears Prada and loving it, thought it was great. And I said, "Oh, you'd really enjoy it. Watch it. I'm sure you'd really, really like it." And because they're really into fashion and the fashion world. Anyway, they watched it. They did really like it, but their take on it, they were fuming with the fact that the main character, the Anne Hathaway character, I don't know what her real name is. Is it Andy? I don't know. Anyway, because she gets referred to as Emily, they're all called Emily by Meryl Streep. But the fact that she ends up apologizing to her boyfriend for neglecting him and actually quits her job in the end to go back to this boyfriend. Now, at the time, and I'm not sure when it came out, I think was it early 2000s?
I think so.
Yeah, and so not like really far away. I remember thinking the boyfriend was being quite reasonable, but now in 2026, young people watch that and go, that is, she's done nothing wrong. She was pursuing her dream and he didn't like it. And even the fact that she didn't come to his birthday party shouldn't make that into such a big deal because she was pursuing her job and she was pursuing her career. And I was like, God, yeah, you're right. You're right. And it just shows you how things have moved on. I'm going to say 20 years. There might be about 20 years in between the films. And this is probably a similar reason, the fact that we are now doing the 51% and doing our shows and promoting that and doing this podcast, we perhaps 20 years ago wouldn't have done. We would be here telling people, like, yeah, go sell your art at local shows. That's brilliant. You're making money, you're making a career. That's as good as it's going to get. But we need to move those goalposts. We need to keep aspiring and pushing ourselves as women, as artists, and understanding that we don't need to invent the barriers. We need to actually push through them.
And we need to be aware of what the people around us are saying that influence us, family, friends, and terrible boyfriends, and what our brain is also saying too. We have a lot of internalized, you know what? Internalized misogyny is probably the best word for it for women, right? Or people who identify as female, where there's certain ways that women are supposed to be and certain ways we're not supposed to be. So if you're decisive, you're a bitch. If you insist on somebody doing their job, you're difficult to deal with. Like the double standards and the descriptions we have taken in. And I know myself in the 90s had some major issues with where I was like, I will only work in offices with men because women are catty, that kind of thing. Like we have taken that in.
They don't still think that, Paula.
No, that was the 90s. That was
No, I know. But if
quite a
we
while.
haven't evolved.
Yeah, we have to evolve, but we have to also be aware of what we are not aware of. And I know in the last 3, 4 years, but especially in the last 3 years, I've done a lot of unlearning about how I see myself, how I see the rest of the people on the planet, how we're governed, everything else. There's a lot of unlearning that we have to do in order to do our work as artists, as communicators, as women who have something to say, something of value to say, by the way, and not just being a bit silly or, oh, let's humor her because she thinks she's an artist, but art's actually for men, like all of that, fuck that, like completely. We have to also be consciously aware of that too. So the urge to quit may not be ours. It may be something we've taken on. Just like we grew up, I mean, Fia and I grew up on different continents, but we both grew up sacrificing ourselves for our families, whereas our partners, ex-partners, did not. They didn't. They existed. And so there's this unlearning that we have to do and a self-examination. So, yes, you can quit as an artist if you want, although as Fee said, it's like Hotel California. You can leave, you can exit, but you can never leave, or whatever the thing is. I don't know song lyrics, but anyway, you know what I mean. You're once an artist, always an artist, right? But I would ask yourself and ask the hard questions and have journal it or whatever, but get it out of your head. Figure out what's actually going on. As somebody who has quit art several times now and still doing it,
Just
me
keep watching, folks, and let's hear for the next time Paula Telizyn quits art.
exactly. I should just do a whole project on Paula Telizyn quits art. But you know, we it's important to ask ourselves how much of that is us and how much is what we take in, because we are a product of our time. We are a product of our upbringing. We are a product of our media consumption that we are aware of or unaware of, because we take in a lot of ideas every day that are not our own in order to shape our worldview and our place in it. And so if you keep thinking of yourself as little old me and you say that you want to have an ambitious art career or a really strong business, then you need to examine that little old me idea and reframe it. I think
Because we've seen a lot, and still you go on social media and we have seen a lot of posts of, "Hi, my name is, and I'd love you to support my little art business. Just buy a card. Just if you just anything, any crumb, or just tell me that you like my art. That will help me hugely." It's like, and in fact, one post we saw, somebody had actually posted, "Buy my art won't change your life, but it will change mine." I'm like,
what the hell? Yeah, that
so these people, and I have to say, these are women. I want to go, come listen to the podcast, come join the 51%. There are ways to do it. You do not need to do it this way. Something has told you to say or do this, and you need to question what it is and get rid of it.
I think one of our jobs as artists is to do that self-examination. It's a privilege, but I think it's also a requirement to do that so we can make the best art we can and be the best version of ourselves that we can. And we need to learn to sit in the discomfort. So as we wrap this up, I'm going to share something a little bit personal in this episode, and maybe this will help make it very clear. So I have been, since I've had kids, I've been a plus size person. And that's fine, right? I don't care because I was busy off having kids, doing cool things, going back to school, running businesses. That didn't slow me down at all, make me feel bad. But I've recently lost weight. I'm not on a GLP-1, but I've recently lost a buttload of weight. Actually, probably half my butt.
The buttload.
Yeah, literally. It's a metric buttload, by the way, not imperial buttload. Anyway, and I am now shopping in the non-plus size sections of the stores. And I've had to, because when your jeans are 3 or 4 sizes too big, you have to go and buy new clothing, even though that's only gonna be a temporary stop, and hopefully I'll continue to be half the woman I was. But I found myself surprisingly really uncomfortable. So as somebody, my oldest is 26 now. So as somebody who's been a plus size person for 26 years and been in the plus size section for that long, my weight's gone up and down a little bit between pregnancies, but let's just say that I have never lost the baby weight. To have to shop in a different side of the store, you would think would be really amazing and fun. And yes, it is amazing and fun, but I found myself very, very uncomfortable because now I look at different clothing. I look at different ways of dressing. It's not familiar. It's not the how much can we cover ourselves. It's more like how cute can we be? And it requires me to think of myself at this age and stage I'm at of, can I be cute? And wouldn't that be fun? And am I good enough to be cute? And what will people think, because I'm over 50, if I try to be cute? And do I care about what people think? All these thoughts are running through my head. But it's that real reminder that success, you may think you want it, but being there requires a level of discomfort, in the same way that now I'm in a different part of the shop, enjoying it, but also uncomfortable. And instead of resisting it, I found myself wandering back to the plus section, but everything is way too big on me now. Wandering back to the plus section, sort of feeling like, okay, I'm back where I know where I belong and whatever, I started questioning that and questioning and leaning into my discomfort rather than going back to where I'm comfortable. Because when you lean into your discomfort, you allow yourself to grow. We don't grow in the comfort zone. We don't grow when we feel safe and protected. We grow when we lean into our discomfort and when we do things that make us uncomfortable. So, whether it's public speaking or having a gallery show or raising your prices and telling people, actually, those are my prices, or buying jeans that you haven't worn in a size you haven't worn since you got married, basically. All of that requires a level of redefining ourselves, and that's why I'm sharing this, 'cause maybe it's a real way of expressing what artists have to deal with. Lean into the discomfort and redefine who you are so that instead of quitting, you actually step up to the next level.
And understanding in both these cases that you're still you, but this is just a new you, an improved you. Just the fact in this day and age that they have plus size or whatever you want to call it, because I'm uncomfortable using that term even, separate from all the other women's wear. That if you are a larger person, therefore you're not even allowed to shop with what is deemed as normal shoppers. I mean, it's just shocking. It's so, so sizist and shocking. And anyway, that's just by the by. But I think that's what it is. It's a bit like when you level up, and this is really what we're talking about is leveling up. Embrace it, enjoy it. You are still the same person inside. You are still that good person, and you know who that person is.
And maybe you're just a better version of yourself. Maybe like
Yeah.
an onion, you peel off a layer and see how amazing you
Or a different version of yourself, as you say, when you lose weight your style changes. Suddenly you're not trying to just buy loose baggy clothes. You can actually think, oh, I can wear something fitted. I've never worn anything fitted because nothing ever didn't used to fit you fitted. It wasn't made fitted. It was just like, wear this tent, here you go.
So leaning into the discomfort is a good thing. But if you are like me and maybe a little bit dramatic or passionate, feel free to quit, but know that you never actually quit. And give yourself that.
And know that I'll be on your shoulder going, you'll come back.
Yeah, yeah.
Once a creative, always a creative. You'll be back.
Exactly. Exactly. Awesome. Okay, so I think that wraps up this episode of Art Crush. We want to thank you very much for listening, liking, and subscribing. We are watching our stats and we can see you. Hello, in listening to us. Please feel free to share it with your friends and fellow artists. Like the podcast, subscribe, and you can do so at Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Audible, iHeart Podcasts, and I can't even list them all. So just search for Art Crush wherever you listen to your podcast episodes. And we will see you in the next one. New episodes come out every Saturday, UK time.